Good morning.
Morning. Good morning. Good morning.
This is where Wisconsin wakes up. It's Daybreak with Brian Noonan and Jamie Martinson. Here are your hosts, Brian and Jamie.
It's 6:06 right now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on the Civic Media Network. We hope your day is off to a great start, bright and early. And Brian, just more news, just a wee bit of things to talk about this morning.
Why would it be any different? Good morning, Jamie. Good morning, everybody. We're glad you're here. As Jamie said, if you want to get involved and speak with us this morning via phone or text, 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. Yeah, it's a lot. Local, national, international, space news. We don't have any space news today, but we do have health news and all kinds of
Sean
things.
Duffy's working on it. He'll give us something at some point to talk about.
I am, with all the other stuff that's happening, how are we not getting any Space Force updates?
I
want to
know.
know that, because with everything else, the way the world is now, I fully expect an alien invasion. Something
Sure.
else is coming. And
That feels like it might be normal in the current trajectory of things if there was some sort of alien invasion. I think.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever was ready to accept my alien overlords, but at this point, how much worse could it be? You know?
Maybe that we just solved the mystery. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe this is the alien overlords that have already come, and we just don't know all of the facts yet.
Is this like V, where if we pulled on Trump's face, there'd be a lizard head underneath?
Perhaps
right.
that's exactly what's happening. See, these are things that you should think about early in the morning, getting ready
That's right.
for your day.
Daybreak has just changed formats to all conspiracies all the time. Donald Trump has a lizard head.
Well, it's better than dabbling in the reality sometimes.
Yes, but we must endure. That is,
We do.
That is our cross to bear, to deal with the realities. And one of those realities is still the ongoing war. If, again, still the terminology not clear, but we'll call it a war because sure looks and sounds like a war. This is what's happening in Iran today. The latest updates, U.S. President, well, you know who that is, Donald Trump. He has made contradictory statements on when the war will end. Sure, why wouldn't he? A top Iranian official, though, told CNN that Tehran is prepared for a long war and only economic pain will end it.
Wow.
And they're used to economic pain. So
yeah, that doesn't sound like they're giving up anytime soon. And we're going to actually get into a little bit longer discussion on the president's timeline in just a few moments here. The war has caused the biggest oil disruption in history as well. Threats of transit through the Strait of Hormuz persist while Iran and the U.S. trade warnings over its security.
And this is another headline that really cements the fact that, well, the old regime had to go, but it doesn't look like the new regime is going to be any better.
No.
5 members of the Iranian women's soccer team have been granted humanitarian visas by Australia. Supporters had been urging the Australian government to offer the players refuge over fears they'd be persecuted in Iran for failing to sing the national anthem.
Well, that doesn't sound like much has changed at all under new leadership. We talked about it, though, right? We knew that under this new regime, things were maybe going to be a little bit stricter and go back and be a lot of the same, but maybe even with some more guardrails for the people of Iran. So
correct.
I think that's the first domino of that we're going to see. Historic landmarks were reportedly damaged after an Israeli airstrike hit the nearby provincial governor's building on Monday. That's at least according to Iranian media and eyewitness accounts.
I was waiting to see if you were going to try to pronounce the palace and the
I
town.
looked at it this morning. I got out pronunciation guides, and
I did too.
I would butcher it so badly that I don't even want to try this morning because I feel like that is actually more disrespectful than trying not to pronounce it.
I agree, and I did the same thing. I was like, boy, these are ones I haven't heard. This is going to be tough. The world's biggest economies are now considering emergency releases of millions of barrels of oil into the market. That might sound like a lot, but experts say even tens of millions of barrels are more like a drop in the bucket when it comes to global oil needs. So things are going to get rough. We talked about not only gas but diesel prices yesterday, and don't expect any relief soon because even even by a miracle, say this war ended
Yeah.
by the end of the week, things aren't going to all of a sudden go back to normal, as the president has told. And I don't think his urging of tankers to just have some guts and go through the
Yeah.
Strait of Hormuz is going to really carry any weight. That could have been one of the most ridiculous statements, and that's saying something. But telling unarmed tankers to just go through basically a
Yeah.
blockaded area of the world.
Right. Well, and you look at what's happening and the destruction of the land and the property in the Middle East right now. I mean, obviously, there's also the loss of life. There's been thousands of casualties of civilians. You're right. I mean, even if things ended today, at this very minute, like the president keeps saying that they could, maybe they will. And again, we'll get into that in a second with his timeline. It turns out that when you basically destroy all of the infrastructure, and let's be real, in parts of the Middle East, there's not a lot of infrastructure anyway, but there is for the oil. There is for the important.
Don't worry, the oil can get out.
Right?
If it's under normal circumstances.
Turns
the
out
oil
when that's
flows.
destroyed, it's a little harder to actually just, business as usual when things are maybe said and done. But
Jamie,
I think
only idiots don't think that the prices will come down, and this is good. Only I realized I'm an idiot, which people have said for a long time. I didn't believe it until now.
You just have the proof now. It's fine.
Sure,
You
the
just have the proof.
President has certified me 100% American idiot. And I don't want to be an American idiot.
No.
So back to what you were saying about how long this could be. The president has said the U.S. war with Iran could be, quote, short term, describing the conflict as a brief military action that was necessary. That he told people that when he did his little press conference yesterday and was speaking to Republican lawmakers and donors at a political gathering in Florida. Because why would he be in Washington, D.C. when we're at war, when the golf course beckons?
Well, he had to raise some money, and this was what the president said at his club in Doral yesterday. This is cut one, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Iran, you called it an excursion. You said it would be over soon. Are you thinking this week it will be over?
No,
Are you talking
but soon.
about days?
I think soon.
Okay, and with respect
Very soon. Look, everything they have is gone, including their leadership. In fact, there are two levels of leadership, and even actually, as it turns out, more than that. But two levels of leadership are gone. Most people have never even heard about the leaders that they're talking about. So it's obviously been very, very powerful, very effective.
Follow up, Mr. President. News came out yesterday.
Question, Mr. Noonan.
Yes, Iran just announced the new supreme leader yesterday, who has been in the regime for decades, following in his father's footsteps. Can you please clarify then how they have no leadership?
Well, I don't believe he can because they're 2 or 3 deep in this case, and there's obviously been too much destruction. Nobody can come back from this. Well, it turns out that this regime was probably more prepared for this than most regimes across the country.
Than we were, and we're the ones who were bombing.
Exactly. This conflict, we're 10 and a half, 11 days into this conflict now. The tensions continue to raise concerns about the global oil supplies, as we were just referring to. The oil prices are now $100, above $100 per barrel, which is the highest level in nearly 2 years. Gas prices all around the country, not just here at home, but everywhere, have jumped to around $3.48 per gallon. So if you're not paying that right now, consider yourself lucky. And that's up from about $2.90 a month ago. Now, the president did warn that Iran attempts to block the ships in the Strait of Hormuz, which is that critical oil route. And not only just oil, that's the other thing we all have to remember, too. It's not just the oil that goes through the strait. It is basically every good that is shipped out of that portion of the world goes through the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. says that they'll respond with some immense force. What does that mean?
Got to throw that qualifier in again. He couldn't just say respond with force. He's immense. It's going to be the greatest force. It's going to be forceful, forcing forces. There will be force, which is a good thing. E equals MC squared. I heard that once. I don't know what it means. But there's physics involved, which is what I use on my hair. There's a lot of things, Jamie.
Well, we know that none of that has probably come into play at all as we go through this process of watching what's happened in the Middle East. If somebody was using MC squared, I would actually feel a little bit better, I think, in this particular instance. But the Strait of Hormuz is literally the most important transit route in the world. And Trump has said that the U.S. Navy has significant military presence in the region to keep the shipping lane open.
Then why isn't he doing it?
Well,
Because
that
he's all
would be,
talk.
It would be, that's the question, right? Because he was also asked yesterday about a reported U.S. missile strike that hit that girls' school in Iran, killing more than 170 people. He said that he'd not seen the video, and he suggested without any evidence that missile might not have come from the United States, even though Tomahawk missiles are primarily used by the United States as well as allied forces. The Department of Defense says the incident is still under investigation.
Of course it is.
Of course it is.
Here's the thing. In war is messy, and that is the greatest understatement I've made in the 17 minutes we've been on the air. But normally, the U.S. has been very forthcoming. If we have made some sort of miscalculation, accident seems to diminish what happened. But that's why it was not an intentional strike. If that's the case, we come out and take responsibility. He never takes responsibility for anything. So of course he's going to blame somebody else for blowing up this school. And in the end, it's a tragedy no matter where the bomb came from. But if it did come from us, the least we can do is take responsibility for it.
Right. And here's, I think, the thing that is so many things about what's happening in the Middle East bother me, but wars aren't going to end just because you say they're going to, right? That's not how this works. That's not how diplomacy works. And I think what is more frightening to me at this point is there's never been a clear plan. There's not really a clear goal. There's not a clear exit strategy. We don't even know at this point as Americans and as a public why this even started. Now, let me be clear. I understand all of the background in the Middle East and with Iran. I'm not saying that, but there was no imminent threat. Intelligence over and over has proven that there was no intelligence threat imminent threat to the United States. And so without some sort of clear explanation or what the objective was, anything around that just seems none of this seems like it needed to happen. There didn't need to be this many casualties. There didn't need to be 7 service members that have been killed in this conflict. It just seems like it was unnecessary. And
Trump was pulled into this by Netanyahu. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Former Biden White House staffers are coming out and saying Netanyahu tried to do this after the October 6th attacks on Israel, which were horrible. But he tried to draw the United States in, and Biden said, no, we're not. We'll back you up if you're attacked, but we're not going to preemptively hit somebody. Well, that's what Trump doesn't have that kind of restraint. But we're engaging, not enraging.
Across the state of Wisconsin, Daybreak with Brian and Jamie is back.
It's 6:22 right now. We hope that you are having a great morning. Thank you so much for joining us on the Civic Media Network. I am Jamie Martinson.
And good morning, I'm Brian Noonan. We're glad you're here. Wisconsin lawmakers actually working together for once. Not for once, but rarely do we see it. We love it, though. Wisconsin has expanded its missing child alert system under a law connected to the Prince Act. If you don't know about the Prince Act, it was named after Prince McCree. He's a 5-year-old Milwaukee boy who was killed in 2023. The original law was passed to fill gaps in the alert system here in Wisconsin after officials were unable to issue an Amber Alert when Prince went missing because they lacked information about a subject. So it's good to see this. One, it's good to see Republicans and Democrats working together for something that actually has real world consequences and will help, children and families. So this is good. And they've done this before, Jamie. Similar issues have been addressed.
Yes, there was the law also addressed a case of 10-year-old Lily Peters of Chippewa Falls. Her disappearance did not meet the Amber Alert criteria. Now, the updated law now expands eligibility for missing child alerts to children up to age 12 instead of just limiting those alerts to children under the age of 10. This expansion was possible after the state budget added about $319,000 in funding, as well as 2 staff positions at the Wisconsin Department of Justice, so that somebody could manage this alert system.
Oh,
And
well,
this
that's
is where
good.
and this is they're using the surplus. They're working on the budget. They're doing things together because this legislation, as you mentioned, was authored by both a Democrat and a Republican. Democratic Senator LaTanya Johnson and Republican Senator Jesse James, who they both also helped pass the original Prince Act.
Nice.
Now, Jesse James is interesting because he is the only legislator in the state who is an active law enforcement officer. So
really?
Jesse James has a little background in these things, and I know that sometimes we don't want to admit this, right? But Jesse James is a pretty great guy. So he does a lot for his community, a lot
There
for
you go.
mental health as well.
And
Governor
I love
Evers,
his name.
yeah, I know, right? Governor Evers signed the expansion the expansion into law on March 6th, along with several other bipartisan bills. Now, under these new rules, Brian, alerts can be issued for children ages 10 or 11 if there are several conditions met, including the child's location is unknown. The alert is issued within 72 hours of a disappearance. The case does not qualify for another alert like an Amber Alert. The child is entered into the National Crime Information Center database, and authorities have enough information to release to the public to help locate that child. So just, I mean, there's a few things that, law enforcement are going to have to go through to make sure that they can get these, out into the public. But at the end of the day, if you're talking about a missing child and this helps and law enforcement has a few more eyes, I don't think that's ever a bad thing when you're talking about a missing individual.
No, you got to get that. You got to get the information out. And so during the first year after the Prince Act was passed, 17 missing child's alerts were issued for 14 children, compared to about 4 Amber Alerts for 5 children during the same period. I know you research endlessly, and I did not see this. And now I wish I had done a little more. Do you know that the criterion between the differences between the criteria for a missing child alert and the Amber Alert, or why an Amber Alert only goes so far?
The missing child alerts are typically sent to phones within about a 5-mile radius of the child's last known location, usually between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m.
Okay.
The alert system can also be used for children up to the age of 18 who can't return home due to a physical or mental condition or a disability. I think when it comes to the Amber Alert, I think it's got to be... I don't know all the criteria, honestly.
I think the Amber Alert is when they do know, if they know where he's in this car, or the kid was left with their an estranged parent or whoever. So
there's
they have
a little bit more of a connection,
right? They have they have leads on the suspect, as opposed to just this missing child alert, which is more a general. Hey, this kid's missing. We don't know anything, but they're gone. So I think that's the key difference, is that the Amber Alert, they have more information to put out there.
Right. And there's been some people who've been a little skeptical since this law was signed and when it first became a bill. These alerts don't replace police work, right? That was kind of some of the criticism that people had. Well, are the police going to still want to do the investigative work? What this bill does is essentially supports it, and they give investigators more information, more awareness in the community, and more chances to find a child quickly. And for families, that means not being told, hey, sorry, your kid doesn't qualify for this Amber Alert. So, there's not a lot we can do right now other than start the investigation process. For law enforcement, this is just another tool to really help do their job faster and more effectively and get more eyes and more community involved.
Exactly. How can you be opposed to more people being aware that there's a kid missing?
Well,
It's just more
there's
people. And there's nosy Gladys Kravitzes in every neighborhood that are looking out the window. Somebody in that area is going to get their phone and perhaps they just drove by some kid who was
right.
walking down the street or
Yeah.
they saw something. So there's only so many police officers.
Right.
There's a
There's
lot
a few
more
things
regular
that they
citizens.
Have to do. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I think that was just it. I think for there were a few critics of this, and I think for those people, they just felt like maybe it took a little bit out of the police hands and put more in the community hands. But honestly, at this point, I think,
the community has too much time on their hands anyway.
Right?
We need
if
something
you're
more
talking about
constructive
a missing
to do.
Kid, let's be honest. This could be the difference between that kid not coming home and that kiddo coming home to their family.
Yeah.
So I think at this point, kudos for the bipartisan support.
This is
Kudos to the
exciting.
governor for signing it. And anytime you can get a kid home, it's a good day, right?
It is a good day.
It is 6:29 right now. You are listening to Daybreak. I'm Jamie Martinson.
And I'm Brian Noonan. Hey, remember Doge? Remember how many jobs they cut? Well, they're trying to hire some people back. We'll talk about that and a lot more. It is the Civic Media Network.
Now back to more of Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
6:35 right now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. If you are listening in Appleton and Oshkosh on WISS or in Eau Claire on 93.5 The Tap, or even in Wisconsin Rapids on WFHR, thank you so much for having us on. We do appreciate it. I'm Jamie Martinson.
And I'm Brian Noonan. Good morning. Are you surprised that Doge didn't really work out? I am not. But if you want to get involved with about this or any other thing we're talking about, 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. So remember about a year ago, chainsaw, when the Trump administration tied to Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, where we're getting Doge money back, remember. They pushed out hundreds
Have you gotten any of your checks yet? Have you gotten any of your checks? Okay,
but maybe they fired those people that were supposed to send the checks.
They fired everybody.
Hundreds of thousands of federal workers without any plan. That's what I love about this administration.
Yes.
Act first, think later.
Yep.
Now the government.
Are they really thinking later? I mean,
Well, they're
let's
thinking
be
how to
realistic.
cover up
Okay,
what they
all
talked
right.
of, what they did, and you have to think of that many excuses. That many
is true.
excuses don't just naturally fall out of their melons.
Right.
Well, now we're getting some hiring, Jamie. This is exciting. Officials say the hiring push reflects a recognition that some critical skills and positions were cut too deeply. I think you don't have to be a civic planner. You don't have to be an efficiency expert to go, when you fire everybody, things aren't going to work anymore. But they're just starting to figure that out. So they're starting to hire some people back because it was more than 387,000 federal employees got fired during Elon's reign of terror.
Think about the timeline of this, though. It's about a year ago that they just laid off. They either fired, laid off, or accepted buyouts from these 387,000 federal employees. And about a year later, they're like, we should probably have some of those people back.
Yeah.
It only took them that long to figure out that government wasn't actually running very efficiently without those 387,000 people. And now they're going to hire about 123,000 new workers to replace. So less than half. But, hey, government efficiency. And let me be clear. I also think that there's a lot of places in the government where we do overspend, where we're not efficient.
Yes.
We probably could do things a lot better. It's like any other business in that respect. But at the same time, I mean, usually you have a plan going into those processes and those conversations, and it's not just Elon Musk and his band of I'm not sure what they were.
Teenage hackers.
Yes, they were, because they looked younger than my kids, who were 22 and 19, and it was mind-boggling what happened during the Doge period.
Do you not have faith in Big Balls to come in and do his job and take care of everything? That was one of Elon's handpicked guys. I couldn't. But anyway, they just no. When you are revamping not only a small company, but a giant bureaucracy like the
Right.
federal government, you can't fire everybody in 30 days. You need to audit each department. There have to
Right.
be productivity reports. It takes a long time, and you have to start like one
Right.
bureau, one department at a time, and say, okay, we've done this. We've done our due diligence. You need to reduce your workforce by 10%. You don't just go in and start firing everybody
Right.
to save money with the chainsaw.
What I think is interesting about this, though, is the White House says that the goal of bringing in 123,000 new workers is still a smaller, more efficient federal workforce, but one that is better aligned with the president's priorities. And this is where
What
a
are
lot
those?
of people. Well, I think this is where it gets a little terrifying, though, if you're listening this morning, because there's some new hiring rules that are designed to give the White House greater control over the federal workforce. And those new rules include expanding the role of political appointees in hiring decisions, creating new job classifications that make it easier to hire people supportive of the administration's agenda, and to also make it easier to remove employees who oppose those policy goals. So in other words, if you don't agree with the president, they don't want you working in the federal government. That's not what civil workers do.
Right.
That's not what they've ever done. They have served presidents of all different backgrounds. They have served presidents of both political parties because they are civil service workers, and this is what they do. I think this is actually even if we're sitting here this morning and we're making light of some of the administrative moves over the course of the last year, especially with DOJ, I think this is a time where you need to get a little concerned because they're literally putting lackeys in the U.S. government. And if you don't,
I love that. You don't hear that very often. Lackey.
and
I like
if
it.
you don't support this administration, we don't want you to work here. You shouldn't be part of our government. That's not what this is. That's not how the federal government operates.
Yeah.
And I think that's the frightening part to me. Now, officials say that they want to rebrand federal jobs as an opportunity for young professionals and college graduates, and especially in the areas like technology, healthcare, program management, and cybersecurity. And this is where this story gets fun because this administration likes names. They like to name everything. So one initiative, Brian, is called Tech Force, and this would recruit software engineers and data analysts and place them across federal agencies in 2-year assignments before they move them to the private sector for jobs.
Tech Force, Space Force, getting.
There's a theme.
Yeah, I don't know. It's ridiculous. I'm glad people are getting jobs. That's good.
Yes.
But we know. Why now? Why when the last jobs report came out and it was so dismal? Why now are we going to hire 120,000 people just to bolster that? Do we and I love the term lackey that you used because who are we going to hire? We're going to hire more yes men and women that will come in. We're going to hire people who aren't qualified. That just seems to be their MO. I wish it was different, but who's going to be in charge of the hiring? Is it just more people that want the same mindset in these new jobs?
We've got Andrew chiming in this morning over on the text line listening on WMDX. He says the reduced labor rate for a year and now they get to spend the money on training. Essentially. If you want to chime in this morning.
Onboarding is very expensive.
It is. 1-855-752-4842, 1-855-75-CIVIC if you want to join the conversation this morning. I think something like Tech Force, though, to me raises some real questions. What exactly would those teams be working on, and what data are they going to have access to, and who's going to be overseeing these projects? Because this administration has already asked for the 2020 election ballots from multiple states. They've talked about nationalizing elections. They've requested voter rolls and program data from multiple states. And it has also pushed for expanded AI and data capabilities inside the government. So maybe there are legitimate reasons for those projects, but when you combine all of that with their push to hire people based on political alignment, it makes me start really wondering what the goal for these employees is going to be on a daily basis.
And does it make you suspicious that they're being hired for 2-year temporary assignments?
Very
2
much
years.
so.
That's, oh, wait a minute. What year are we in? What's in 2 years? 2 years is going to be right before a general election.
General election.
Would you? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know we're all sounding like conspiracy freaks now. I understand, but are we? Are we really? Does it seem too coincidental? These are
Yes.
not, they're basically bringing in paid interns. They're
Right.
going to bring them on for 2 years, and then they're going to move these people will then move into private sector jobs. So you're hiring for the short term. It's almost like seasonal hires, but these are seasonal to get ready for an election, allegedly, and then you're letting them go, and it all smells fishy.
It does. And honestly, if this government says that it's because people want to turn it into something, well, that's because you've done enough things at this point while you've been in charge of the country, that there's a lot of us that are doubting the things that you do or say because you haven't given us reason to actually trust the things you're doing or saying. Now, despite this hiring push, the federal workforce is still significantly smaller than when Donald Trump first took office after major layoffs and agency cuts. Some agencies have struggled to operate with fewer staff. For example, Brian, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency lost nearly 40% of its workforce. By the way, TechForce will be they'll be using TechForce to basically, put more people into the cybersecurity and infrastructure area of government, just in case you're
really?
wondering, right? The Department of Veterans Affairs has seen job applications drop by about 50% compared with the previous year, and the Social Security Administration has reassigned staff from policy and IT roles to answer phones due to the increased call volumes. And honestly, here in Wisconsin, we're not faring much better because of DOGE. Roughly 2,400 federal workers in Wisconsin have left their jobs since late in 2024 during those workforce cuts. Wisconsin has about 18,000 civilian federal employees, meaning the cuts affected around 13% of the state's federal workforce during that DOGE operation in the federal government, which, I mean, that's hard to come back for a state economy. And they're not going to hire all those people back. And some of those people have gone on to find other jobs because they were forced to because of the administration's actions.
And even if you're desperately looking for work, and it's a very hard market to get hired, are you going to go back to a place that you can't trust that you'll have your job in another 6 months? Because things are so volatile with this administration, and if they don't get what they want, like if they hire the tech force and they're not getting the results they want, or enough people push back if there's any oversight to say, hey, what are these people accessing? I wouldn't trust going back and going, oh, what am I going to be unemployed again in 6 months, 3 months, a year?
Not to mention the fact that if you are a long-term civil servant employee, again, your job is to not capitulate to the administration. Your job is not to necessarily agree with everything the administration does. Your job is to be there on a daily basis to make sure that things are running smoothly and operations are not being affected. People are getting what they need. Phones are getting answered. And your job is to not agree necessarily with the administration. Now, I guess if you do, that's just a perk of going to work every day.
I don't think you understand what a government employee is, Jamie. Government employee works for the government, and the government is the man at the top. Everything flows through him. He is the be-all, end-all. And if you don't do what he wants, then you're out. No, it's in the end, it's good for some people to have a job. That's
agreed.
great. So now we go, okay, these people were probably getting unemployment, so now they don't have to get unemployment. They can get this job. Or maybe they're not even hiring back former employees. Now maybe they're just recruiting. Who knows with these 2-year contracts? Who's getting these jobs? Who is going to be doing the hiring? There's a lot of different things. So while you can say it's great that people are getting jobs, that's great. What is this going to mean to you and I down the road? And what happens in 2 years when all those people who were hired for temporary jobs now don't have jobs again? Always questions with this administration. There's never straightforward good news.
It would be like if there was a plan and they actually knew how to run government in some capacity, that maybe these questions wouldn't be mysteries.
All facts, no fiction. It's Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Hopefully your day is off to a great start. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And I'm Brian Noonan. Glad you're with us. I know. You're saying, Brian, Jamie, all you guys do is talk about bad news. But I'm feeling pretty good. I've got my health. Things are going good. I whistle to work every day. Everything's great. Well, listen. Far be it from me to let you have an enjoyable day. I'm here to just point out the absurdities.
Squash it all.
I'm going to squash it all because a couple of health stories coming up. One is hitting close to home for me, but and the other is just like, oh, I thought we had this thing licked, but it's not. So let's start with the Food and Drug Administration, which is under the auspices of our health secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is a piece of work unto himself. But the FDA's top drug regulator is Dr. Tracy Beth Hogue. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's in charge, and she's trying to hire a researcher and friend who wants the agency to add new warnings to antidepressants about unproven pregnancy risks. That's according to the Associated Press. This doctor, Dr. Adam Urado, he's a maternal fetal medicine specialist and critic of antidepressant safety. He's pressing the FDA to add black box warnings to SSRIs. Those are the drugs most commonly described for depression. And Jamie, once again, we love when our government officials are pushing no science-backed science.
We were talking about that during the break. When did we hit this cliff? This is a legitimate question for me.
Mm-hmm.
When did we hit this cliff where we quit listening to science, we quit listening to actual data, we quit listening to the people who might, I don't know, have experience in these things? When did that become the norm?
I remember it starting with Jenny McCarthy and that pediatric vaccines cause autism. And I can only imagine if you are a parent and your child is diagnosed with autism, you want answers. You want to figure out, well, how did this happen? Was it something that I did? Is it just genetic? What could it be? All of her claims were proven false over and over and over and over.
Right.
But there were still parents who, in desperation to find answers, and I don't blame any parent who wants to find answers. Of course you do. But they were clinging to fake reports and bad science and just theories that had been disproven. And then that started rolling, the anti-vaccine thing. All of a sudden it came to COVID and the world just exploded and doctors were not to be trusted.
We also had a lot of time to sit at home and just search the internet for all of the things that ailed us and all the answers. And then we also had a president at the time who also believed in all of the things that he saw online that might actually solve COVID. And because, of course, he didn't want it to be his problem on his watch. Right. And so it's mind-boggling, though, that we now have this person who is tied to the FDA, who's in a petition says that these medications, meaning the antidepressants, can cause pregnancy complications, including miscarriages and fetal brain abnormalities that may lead to autism and other disorders in children. Speaking of things that, will drive parents off of a cliff trying to find answers, more than 15% of women, Brian, or about 26 million people take medication for depression. according to the latest figures.
Yes.
These are not medicines that you can just go on and off of. We have that.
No.
We have experience with this in our own family. My 19-year-old, it has to be on depressants, antidepressants, because of how his brain works. And that's
Yes.
okay. He's had to figure out how to live with it and deal with it. He's gone through the therapy routes. He does it every single day. I've seen the kid work harder than most people will in their entire lives to combat this, because you know what? At one point in time, my kid wanted nothing more in this world than to not be in this world. So I've seen what these medications can do.
I am on them, and it was for the same thing, and I thank God for them every day because they have improved my life, and it's great. Another thing that we thought so again, there's people who are trying to stop this, because if you don't, a black box warning is huge for doctors. They won't prescribe if there's black box warnings. People won't take medication if there are black box warning on there. And according to a doctor from the University of Virginia, she's a reproductive psychiatrist, she said, quote, "What's missing in this petition is an understanding of the risks of maternal mental illness during pregnancy, not just to women, but to the pregnancy and ultimately to the infant." So, they're getting away with a lot at the FDA, but mumps is back. That's good news. I mean, I guess if you're a mump, it's good news that you get to come back.
Not for anybody else, though.
Jamie, health officials in Maryland have issued an alert confirming an uptick in mumps cases. 26 reported so far as of February 19th, including 19 confirmed and 7 probable infections, according to the Maryland Department of Health. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported as of late February, 11 jurisdictions have documented 34 cases. Here, just a little something. Up until 67, mumps, everybody was getting mumps.
Yeah.
Oh, but then guess what came along? A vaccine, and it dramatically
Amazing.
reduced this from just a number, 152,000 cases in 1968 to 231 cases in 2003.
Oh,
Not
well,
bad.
why would we believe the science on that one? Why would we believe the science and the data on that one? Hey, for anybody who doesn't believe in vaccines, the reason the information changes is because new research comes out.
Oh.
And it might tell us that we need to do things a little bit differently. So if you're on the fence about why those things change, hey, data-driven science is actually still a thing, and we're sorely lacking it right now in this country. And by the way, as we're talking about this, the Wisconsin Department of Health just put out new statistics yesterday. There were about 1,200 fewer 2-year-olds that were up to date on their vaccines in 2025 in this state than just a year ago.
The government can't tell me what to put in my body.
Put some bleach in, people. That's what the president told us. It's fine.
Or shove a light bulb somewhere. It's all going to work. Either way, we got to get to break. But when we come back, the Justice Department and Live Nation have reached a settlement. We'll talk about that and more. This is Daybreak. I'm Brian Noonan.
I'm Jamie Martinson. You are listening to the Civic Media Network.
They're badly losing.
From Lake Superior to Lake Michigan, this is Wisconsin's Morning Conversation. Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
7:06 right now. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us today. We always appreciate it, no matter where you're listening, whether you're listening on your radio today or maybe even your app, which, by the way, you can download for free over at your Google or your Apple store, and hear us, take us wherever you go. Also, hear some really great music choices, because all of our 30-some stations are over on
That's
that app.
nice.
So you have lots of options. Oh, and hey, Brian, we also have a Facebook page we'd love people to go check out.
And don't forget Instagram. We're
Yes.
we're everywhere that you need to be.
That's
as
right.
Jamie said, take the app with you, and then when you're like, I've had enough news, here, listen to music for a little bit, get an interlude, and then come back and listen to some more. We're
I'm
going to
to
get
start
into
doing
this.
that during this show. I'm going to start taking an interlude during the show.
Parker, you're in charge. Just every once in a while, I go, interlude. And then we'll do like 15 seconds of soft music. And then we'll take a
right.
breath. Everybody take a
Breathe.
breath. And then we'll come back and continue the story.
That's right.
Hey, sometimes you just got to calm down a little.
Well,
It's fine.
Well,
there's a lot going on.
Pete Hegseth is speaking now. And I see Pete Hegseth, and all I hear in my head is Colin Jost. Colin Jost does a great Pete Hegseth on
He
SNL.
does.
But Pete says we're winning. We are winning. They're, what did he call them? Barbarians?
Yes.
with a couple other
savages.
barbaric savages. That was it. He had. They all love the adjectives. There's a lot of adjectives in Pete's thing. A lot of pointing with his doing the tomahawk point.
They got thesauruses for Christmas, I'm pretty sure, so that they can find out lots of adjectives and they can mix up the words a little bit. I'm sure of it at this point.
That makes sense. It's not a bad, as far as crazy theories go about this administration. That's not far fetched. But yes, he's saying Iran is standing alone and they are totally defeated, and they're racing to build a nuclear weapon, which is
I was pretty sure we destroyed that ability for them to do that, hadn't we? At least that's what we've been told. I'm sorry. Do I need to stop asking questions again? Is that what the problem is?
What did Pete just tell us?
Well, here's the problem.
We are winning.
I don't know if I trust Pete, but that's just me. You choose to trust Pete or not. I'm not sure that I trust Pete or anybody else in this administration to actually tell me really what's happening. But here we are.
Not a chance. Not a chance. And I feel bad because there's Dan Kane, the head of the Joint Chiefs, and he's got to stand there next to Pistol Pete, and and really discuss what's happening. So we'll keep you posted on any developments that comes out of that. But close to home, if you've had to buy a concert ticket in the last number of years, Live Nation has a lock on ticket sales. And even though Eddie Vedder, how long ago was that they were going to fight Live Nation and the monopoly? That didn't work out, Eddie. Well, the U.S. Department of Justice announced a tentative settlement in its antitrust lawsuits against Ticketmaster and its parent company, Live Nation Entertainment, over allegations the company has an illegal monopoly in live events industries. You think?
These are allegations. Anybody who's ever bought a ticket for any sort of venue knows that these are not actually allegations. This is true. But that's okay. I get it. Legalese.
All right. Well, the government says that the agreement would increase competition in ticket sales and limit some Ticketmaster limit their control over venues and events. Yeah, because Live Nation pretty much runs the show. Remember when there was Ticketron and that?
Yes.
Then it was there, but you could buy tickets at a couple places. That's when you'd stand outside Sears for hours and hours trying to get in and find the window that was up behind the appliances to buy your tickets.
And unfortunately, we don't have to do with that anymore. We go online. Although there were some good memories in standing in those ticket lines.
You met a lot of fun people standing in those lines.
You really did. But under this new proposed settlement, venues would be allowed to sell a portion of their tickets through competing ticket platforms rather than just exclusively through Ticketmaster. At places that like amphitheaters that are owned, operated, or controlled by Live Nation, up to 50% of tickets could be sold through other ticket marketplaces. Ticketmaster service fees at those venues would also be capped at 15% and attempt to limit the higher fees that a lot of us pay when we're buying our tickets. And Live Nation would also be required to divest ownership or control of 13 amphitheaters across the country, including a venue in Milwaukee, interestingly enough. Now, this agreement also calls for Live Nation to establish a $280 million settlement fund that would go towards state claims, civil penalties, and potentially compensation tied to this lawsuit. And the deal would also extend the existing consent decree between the Justice Department, Live Nation for another 8 years, which essentially just allows federal regulation to continue so that they can monitor the company's business practices and ticket policies. In other words, saying, we know as soon as we take our eye off you, you're going to go right back to doing what you were doing before.
Sneaky Pete's, we're standing on top of you.
Now, I think this is interesting, though, because when you really look at this, I mean, I get it. I get they're trying to regulate some of this. Is it really going to matter? Because Live Nation still gets to keep most of the money. The cap still isn't enough to basically offset a lot of what you're paying with all the service fees and things.
And I doubt that the amount of tickets they would have to give up are going to be prime tickets. We'll give you some tickets. I hope you bring Kleenex because your nose will be bleeding.
Right, exactly.
That's why
Now-
Wisconsin isn't going along with this, Jamie.
No, there's actually more than 24 states that have rejected this settlement, and they plan to continue to pursue this case in court. Now, the attorney generals from these states argue that this deal that we're talking about right here, it doesn't go far enough to address the dominance that Live Nation has over a lot of parts of the live entertainment industry, including the concert promotion, the venue ownership and management, and those ticketing platforms. In fact, a lot of critics say that Live Nation has used long-term contracts, exclusivity agreements, and threats of retaliation to discourage other venues from working with those competing ticket companies. But these are just alleged monopolies that they have.
Alleged. If you remember standing out in line, share your favorite experience of standing out waiting for tickets. 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. Because this, I realized, Jamie, as we started talking about that, this is such a foreign concept to Parker. Imagine Parker having to go to.
You were talking about the lines and stuff and Sears. I was like, what's a Sears? I don't know.
Well, see, we'll start there. What's a Sears? But you would go, and they had the Ticketron booths were in department stores.
Yeah.
A lot of them were at Sears, and they'd be like way up in the back by the customer service. And so people would start lining up, and then there'd be some nerd up front, and he'd make the list. You got to sign the list so we know the order.
Yes.
But then the doors would open, Jamie, and correct me if I'm wrong, the list went out the window as people literally raced to try to get to customer service to get in line.
They trampled the nerd who was still there waiting.
I have the list.
Yeah,
I have the list.
We didn't care about your list. We were
Honor
there to
the
get our tickets.
line. Honor it.
There were, I remember, and a Ticketron was a little bit more foreign to me, but I also remember the venues where you would stand outside their ticket booth, outside, like literally outside.
Outside,
if it was a big show, you would camp outside for at least a night in line with other people because you wanted to be first to get in line for those tickets. There was no holding back portions of tickets so that you could sell them at a bigger resale value later on. When they were gone, and everybody paid the same amount.
And the scalpers had to wait. Yeah. The scalpers had to wait in line just like us.
Yes.
There were the longest I slept out.
Their money.
They paid some chumps to stand in line for them. The longest I stayed out was 2 days for Springsteen tickets. Camped outside of Sport Mart with a couple hundred other people.
Right. And you literally camped. You literally bought like lawn chairs and sleeping bags and you made sure you had a food plan. And if you had to use the bathroom, you made sure you had somebody who could stand in line for you while you used the bathroom.
This both sounds...
It was a thing.
This both sounds horrible and fantastic at the same time.
It was fantastic.
And it was both. It was
like
exactly both of those.
Yeah.
We, in college...
You always hope for good weather, though.
Oh, jeez.
See, that's what I'm afraid of.
That's true. And you weren't buying tickets like a year and a half ahead of time either for a concert. It was a few months. America used to be great.
It truly was awesome.
One of my favorites was in college. We slept out we were there for a day to get Willie Nelson tickets. And we ended up fifth row center, so it was worth it. But that was really fun because you're in college and you have zero responsibilities. Yeah, we should have been going to class, but we had to get Willie Nelson tickets. And so then it's just a party, and there's hundreds and hundreds of people lined up.
You're all having a party outside for the same reason.
Yeah, and everybody's just chill, and you're having a good time.
Yes.
And then you get to the concert, and you're like, oh, and you meet people that, who knows? Who knows how many romances bloomed in lines for those concerts. I did jump a line once.
You did? Oh.
Well, here's the deal. We were lined up for REO Speedwagon at 38 Special tickets.
Okay. 38 Special's I love 38 Special, the best.
And this was when REO was at peak high infidelity popularity. So they were doing 5 nights in Chicago at the old amphitheater. So I was at my local Sears, and I was in line, and there was the list, and somebody must have left on the list because they start calling names. Because sometimes people would follow. People are very predestined to be sheep. We
Yes.
follow. And if
Yes.
somebody sounds official and you're on the list, you're going to follow it. Well, my name was on the list, but it was way down. Well, they kept calling somebody's name who had not, either they left or they were asleep or they were dead. I don't know what happened to them. But either way, I became that person. And I was like, that's me. And I walked up and I got my number. And then I went in and bought my tickets. And I still was behind the stage.
Right? I mean, it was such a simpler time. It sounds ridiculous, but that's what we did, and it was a simpler time, and it
was
sure
fun.
beats. And it sure beats what Live Nation's been doing all these years by overcharging everybody as well. In fact, when it comes to this particular case, some of these state officials who want this to pursue further argue that the practices of Live Nation limit competition and also contribute to these higher ticket prices for fans. And if you think about that, just think about the entertainment that we have in this state in the summer, right? You look at all the concerts at Pfizer Forum, Alpine Valley, Summerfest, even all of the smaller venues that you have to go purchase those tickets. And by the time you get your tickets, okay, granted, let's say they're $100 a ticket, right? You get those. By the time Live Nation puts all their fees on, you're looking at close to $200, if not more, depending on where in the venue and what Live Nation has in their grasp, right? If they own that venue.
And we all can complain and say, why are the fees as much as the ticket? There's nothing we can do. Hopefully this will change things. And kudos on bringing it back, Jamie. That we had gone off on a tangent. And kudos to you for reining me in and saying enough of the stories. We must move back. So we do, and it is an important thing because I was just looking for tickets the other day for something, and I'm like, all right, well, that's and in the summer I only sit in the lawn because those are relatively, depending on the show, relatively inexpensive, and
it's fun.
And it's fun.
Yeah,
that's the reason I go to a show, to have fun. But then I'm looking at the fees, and I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me! I've almost doubled the price for a lawn seat.
Right.
And you know how much I love to roll around in the grass. So
we found this out yesterday. Tom from Hartford says Monsters of Rock, REO Speedwagon, Foghat, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, all at Soldier Field. Oh, come on now.
The Monsters of Rock
Love
tour.
it.
That was great.
Love it.
Yeah.
Let's break out of the bubble and see what's happening out there in pop culture. It's Swipe or Stay on Daybreak.
7:22 right now. It is time for Swipe or Stay when we do break out of our political bubble, talk about something that isn't politics related, and we have a whole lot of fun along the way. Our producer Frank joins us this morning. How are you today?
I'm good. Now I'm thinking of all my concert buying experiences, and I've just had some bad ones too, Brian, as you know.
Yes. Oh, true.
Yeah.
There are always bad ones. But what's in the bright side, Frank? What are we swiping and staying on
I don't know if
today?
there's bright side, but there's going to be some shenanigans.
Well, shenanigans are good.
Shenanigans,
I like shenanigans.
Shenanigans are great. Everybody loves some shenanigans. Swipe
Especially
or
as we
stay.
go towards St. Patrick's Day. That's it.
Yes.
There you go. I'll shut up.
Swipe or stay. Here are the rules. I'm going to read out some vague pop culture headlines. Brian and Jamie will have to decide whether they want to stay on it or swipe on to the next one. In the event of a tie, Parker will be the tiebreaker. Let's move on to story number 1. A controversial musician was caught sleeping in court.
I'm going to swipe.
All right, I'm going to stay on this one because it sounds fun.
Parker, you get to be tiebreaker for story number 1. What are you going with?
It does sound fun. I'm staying.
Ooh, he agreed with you today.
He sided with me.
I got you, Brian.
That's because I didn't mock him about not knowing about Sears and tickets because there was no way he was going to know about Sears and tickets.
No, Amy probably had to talk with him. You have to agree with Brian at some point.
Placate him. He's cranky.
Right. So Kanye West
Oh,
was
Kanye.
caught sleeping during a trial involving his former Malibu mansion. Now, West had a luxury mansion on the beach that he bought for $57 million. Wow. He ended up selling it for $21 million after gutting the entire house into a literal concrete shell. I'm not exaggerating. Go look it up. It is literally just a concrete slab, basically.
Is this a court case his wife wore clothes to for the first time in ever? I'm pretty sure because she showed up to testify the other day and she wore clothes.
So.
Like real clothes, not see-through clothes, real clothes. It was fascinating.
Right. Bianca Sensori.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. The contractor is suing him for unpaid wages after stripping down the entire thing. Rolling Stone magazine reported that he repeatedly yawned, closed his eyes for long stretches, and at times seemed to catch his head falling forward. My favorite part is the judge at one point looked over and said, "Is he asleep?"
Well, in his defense, the lawyers are doing the lawyering. He's just got to sit there. It's got to be boring.
Not when you're on the stand.
It's going to be hard.
Yeah, you know what? You're right, Jamie. It's tough being Kanye West.
It is
right?
tough being
hard being
Kanye
Kanye.
West. Yes.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next one. A bizarre NBA promotion has officially been canceled.
Ooh.
I'll stay.
Yeah, I'll stay too.
Good, because I love this one. The Atlanta Hawks Magic City Night has officially been canceled by the NBA commissioner, Adam Silver.
What's
those
Magic
of
City,
you-
Frank?
Yes, for those of you not in the know, Magic City is a very popular Atlanta strip club, well known for its chicken wings. I'm not
As most strip joints are.
Look up Lou Williams getting out of the NBA bubble back during COVID to go pick up a pickup order from Magic City for some chicken wings and fries. It's a real thing. So this caught
Hairs are extra.
a lot of attention. They were doing a collab night. They were going to have T.I. perform at halftime. They were going to have their food there. They had employees there, fully clothed. Just putting it out there. But there were a lot of people that spoke out against it. San Antonio Spurs center Luke Cornett said the night sent a bad message to the women of the NBA community. So Adam Silver ultimately shut it down.
What a buzzkill.
Right. Embrace the culture. Magic City is Atlanta. Atlanta is Magic City. Everybody knows about it.
Well, now they do because
They do
everybody's
now.
spreading the word.
Yeah.
Food at a gentleman's club, Frank, pro or con?
I've never been to one, but I will.
Gentleman's
say-
club?
Yeah,
Oh,
I have no desire personally.
well,
It does nothing for me.
you're a lovely human.
Right.
Yeah.
But if I was there, I'd be hitting up the buffet or whatever food is there because that's what I would be there for. So yay.
Okay, there you go. Very nice.
For those of
Maybe
you-
this is a discussion for the secret show.
Maybe. Yeah, I
but
think so.
Story number Trey, please.
Yeah, for those of you just catching up with us, we are doing Swipe or Stay. We're moving on to story number 3. A rock star debunks feud rumors.
Swipe.
Yeah, let's swipe this one.
Taylor Swift's fiance makes career decision.
Anything Swifty, I am staying.
Staying.
Mr. Swift himself, Travis Kelce, is returning to the Chiefs for one more season, at
Oh.
least.
Thank God.
He has not
Yikes.
announced. So his New Heights podcast posted on Instagram saying he's back. This comes after the Chiefs missed the playoffs for the first time in 10 years last season with Patrick Mahomes ending his season early. Now, I don't know about you guys, but there was no way Travis Kelce was going to end on that note.
No.
Patrick
No.
Mahomes wasn't on the field with him. I don't think they ended the season at home.
No.
Not in the playoffs. There was just no way.
No.
No. Plus, Taylor doesn't want him just sitting around the house all day.
Right. I mean, she's
out
got
and do
things to
something.
do. He better, don't be a bum on my couch kind
But
of
when's
thing.
the-
Go work.
But he's not going to be. Let's be honest.
No,
He's
he's going to be a
gonna
media
retire.
personality.
He's going to have a great career.
He's gonna go straight to Amazon Prime movies and be
Yes.
like an action star for some like 50% Rotten Tomatoes and lower action.
Oh, he won't care. He'll just do it because it's
100%.
fun. Yeah. Yeah.
Fun action comedy starring Travis Kelce.
Do you
Well, he
think-
was in something. He was just in something recently, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
He
And
did.
he did like that appearance in the Happy Gilmore number 2, whatever it was.
Yep.
With
He's
Adam
pretty good in
Sandler.
that.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was all right.
Easy
Yeah.
lift.
He's got a
Who-
personality. Give him
who
an easy
also-
script, he'll be
Who
fine.
also thinks he won't be sitting at a sports desk with his brother Jason at some point because they're good together as a duo.
They are good, but I
Yeah.
think he's got bigger plans ahead of him. But that's it for Swipe or Stay, guys.
Local voices, statewide impact. It's Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
7:35 right now. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us on the Civic Media Network. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And I'm Brian Noonan. According to a report from a national coalition of small businesses, Wisconsin companies and their consumers paid approximately $3.5 billion in tariffs between March and December of 2025. 92% of the $426 million in tariffs Wisconsin businesses paid in December were levied by presidential action and were not approved by Congress. To tell us about the real-world impact of these tariffs and how the war with Iran might further complicate things is Kyle LaFond. He's the founder of Wisconsin companies American Provenance and Natural Contract Manufacturing. Kyle, thanks for being here. We appreciate your time today. So tell us a little bit about your companies and how the tariffs have affected you in the last year.
Yeah, Brian, Jamie, thanks for having me here today. As a manufacturer, the tariffs have been absolutely catastrophic. You know, when you're running a small business, you rely on certainties. And the only thing this administration has given us is uncertainty and chaos. The businesses I own and operate, we make personal care and wellness products. So any type of product you're going to put on your face or your body, and we make products for about 60 brands at this point. Some athletes and some celebrities and influencers as well. Unfortunately for us, you know, we're based here in Wisconsin, and there's not a lot of palm trees around here.
No.
Yeah, we use it.
I haven't seen any, unfortunately.
No,
Not recently.
we use a ton of coconut oil and shea butter and a lot of distilled oils that basically are manufactured overseas, primarily in Asian nations. So when these tariffs first hit, I took the strategy of trying to absorb those costs at first. And I did that for maybe about 6-7 months, until it came to a point where it just was untenable. It wasn't a sustainable business practice. So we had to then, of course, relay those costs onto our clients, which then in turn get put on the American consumer. Tariffs are nothing but a tax on the American consumer. I said that time and time again. That's very basic, and this administration doesn't seem to understand basic notions.
So the U.S. Supreme Court, Kyle, recently ruled, as a lot of us know, that these tariffs imposed last year were illegal, saying that the president essentially overstepped his authority. So what did that ruling mean for businesses just like yours that had already paid millions in tariffs?
I think it's a glimmer of hope, but I don't know if there's any way to actually recoup those funds. And so a lot of us are talking about, hey, maybe we band together and try to figure out a way to recoup those costs. But realistically, I don't see a viable path forward. I think that money is gone, and I don't know if there's ever going to be a way to get it back. You know, the Trump administration has already talked about other pathways to tariffs. So it's just going to be more of the same. You know, the same chaos and uncertainty that we experienced last year in 25. We're going to have to do that all over again here in 26. I'm not very optimistic about what's going to be coming down the pipeline here.
Let's go back to something you said, and we've been harping on this for the last year, and some people don't seem to get it yet, that the tariffs are a tax on us. Give us an example of what you were, when you were importing, say, the coconut oil, or how much has changed dollars-wise for you? Because, like you said, you then had to pass the cost on to your suppliers, who had to pass the cost on to consumers. So we are paying for it, but people sometimes don't get it, and they need a concrete example.
Yeah, so we had, if you take a look at all of our ingredients across the board, most everything increased by at least 30 to 35%. We had some ingredients, some inputs that increased as much as 100%. The other thing that's unfortunate about tariffs is just timing. So it used to be when we would place orders for all our inputs, they'd arrive here, you know, in 3 to 4 weeks. Now we're talking 3 to 4 months, because there's a lot more red tape and bureaucracy as well. So you're not only increasing costs, but you're extending these timelines that our customers, they're not happy with. And if the customers aren't happy, then the American consumer is not happy. So when you're talking about anywhere from a 30, 35 up to 100% increase in inputs, of course that cost will be passed along. You've seen that in all kinds of stuff. A good example would be the cost of deodorant. You know, if you take a look, we make tons of deodorants here for all kinds of different brands. If you take a look at deodorants you're going to find on a store shelf, 2 years ago, most of them would have been priced right around $7.99, maybe $8.99, right? You go in there today, you're looking at $13.99, $14.99, $15.99. So it's very easy to see where these tariffs are impacting the American consumer. You're paying more for them. That's it. Period. Full stop.
We're talking with Kyle LaFond. He is the founder of Wisconsin companies Natural Contract Manufacturing and American Provenance. He is also a U.S. manufacturing advocate. Now, after the Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs, this administration went ahead and didn't back down. They imposed another 10% global tariff on imported goods under yet a different law. So how much uncertainty does that create for companies that are trying to plan budgets? You mentioned the supply chain. We know that there's this impact in the Middle East now, which we'll get into a little bit more. But how does all of that play into what you're trying to do on a daily basis?
Yeah, it just turns around to luck. Hey, good luck planning anything. This administration has shown such a complete lack of understanding and lack of long-term thought. I've said since the get-go that there is a time and a place for tariffs. If you're strategic and surgical with where you place those, I'm looking specifically at China. We've ignored the China problem for the past 45 years. There's time and a place. But to come in with a sledgehammer and apply these tariffs across the board to everything, that's just stupid. There's no other way to say it. So again, these costs, I had to shoulder them for a long time, and now, of course, I pass them on to the consumer, and that's what pretty much every single company has done that imports from other nations. So anything that's tariffed, guess what? As a U.S. consumer, you're paying for it. There are all kinds of stuff out there, all kinds of figures. Some people estimate that tariffs cost the average American household somewhere between $1,100 and $1,500 last year. I think that's on the low end. I think it's actually much more than that if you really dig in and figure out where these costs were all absorbed.
Kyle, as an advocate and talking to other small business owners, are the stories similar? And we've heard now that some small businesses are being driven out of business just because of the increased costs. Are you seeing that bear out across Wisconsin?
I am. Most businesses operate on razor-thin margins. A lot of folks here, we're not out to gouge consumers or to have prices that are exorbitant. Everything from your coffee shop. Coffee imports have been hit really, really hard. You're going to see a lot of coffee shops raising prices, maybe smaller independent shops closing, which is terrible. And that's where it really hurts when you talk about small, independent, family-owned local businesses. They're the ones that are paying the brunt of these prices. These global corporations, they can absorb some of these costs. And of course, they've got insiders and lobbyists in Washington to kind of ease the pain. But for Main Street businesses, we're the ones that are bearing the brunt of this and taking it out of the chin. And this administration has shown that they care more about international corporations and the billionaire class, the Epstein class, than working class folks like myself and other business owners.
Kyle, there's several Wisconsin companies, and as we talk about the different size companies from the smaller ones to the larger ones, we're talking the larger ones who have filed the lawsuit. I mean, we're talking Kohl's, Milwaukee Tool, Ashley Furniture, and they're suing to get some of their tariff payments refunded. What does that essentially say to you as a manufacturer when businesses feel that the only way they can possibly get their money back is when they have to go to court? And obviously, you just mentioned a little bit of the impact of the small businesses. They can't shoulder those types of court costs like these big companies can.
That's just it. I'm not aware of any small business like myself that has in-house counsel that can take on these legal matters. It's just not. It's not reality. So for a lot of us small business owners, we have to band together, utilize organizations like Main Street Alliance to really kind of shoulder the burden there and make sure that our voices are heard. Those large corporations, they're going to fight tooth and nail because they have the time, money, people, resources to get it done. And that's great for them, but that's not going to trickle down to small businesses like mine. We've talked again as a community about how these tariffs have been terrible for our businesses, but we don't know if there's any way for us to ever recoup those costs. It's going to take some extraordinary measures to get it done for small businesses and Main Street businesses like mine.
Kyle LaFond is our guest. He's the founder of Natural Contract Manufacturing and American Provenance. If you go to AmericanProvenance.com, you can learn all about the company based here in Wisconsin. We're hearing now that with the Strait of Hormuz being closed and all the, we know oil is not getting through. How much effect will this add to what you're going through already as a small business owner?
It's going to be very interesting. Again, this administration, they've shown that no interest in long-term planning or strategy. Because of the sanctions that we've imposed on Iran for years, oil from Iran really doesn't come to the States. Oil from Iran has been fueling China's growth for years. So if you're cutting off oil from Iran to get to China, of course, Chinese inputs are going to increase. And so the costs I'm paying now for packaging, labeling, equipment, all those are going to go through the roof. So I'm not very optimistic about any type of breaks from China or other Asian nations here in the foreseeable future. If there was a strategy, if there was any long-term thought to this quote-unquote excursion that we have now in Iran, these things would have been considered and planned and thought about months in advance. This administration just is so impulsive and operates on just irrational thought all the time. And so, unfortunately, what the whim of the president is doing is going to affect businesses like mine more than I can even comprehend at this point.
So if with the energy prices, because we're watching the price of oil skyrocket kind of before our eyes, we're watching consumers have to pay more at the pump every single day. What do those prices, if they stay elevated at that level, what kind of industries in Wisconsin are going to see the hit first? Is it going to be everybody across the board, or will we see a domino effect?
You're going to see everybody across the board get hit. You know, with these gas prices going up, shipping is going to be diminished. You're going to have a lot of folks that are looking to cut back on spending. You know, affordability is the biggest issue facing this nation right now. And I don't understand why this administration feels that it's right to keep on increasing prices when folks are begging for breaks. It's just not happening. So I think you're going to see a general slowdown in the economy because folks are going to be tight-lipped and keep their pockets, keep their wallets in their pocket rather than spending on consumer goods. So I'm really very tepid on what's going to happen over the course of the next 6 months. I think the end of 2026 here could be disastrous for the American economy if things continue on this path.
Where do you think the breaking point might be for not just you, but other small businesses that you talk to? Because there is that, you know, you're paying more, the consumer's paying more. The consumer doesn't want to pay more, even if they really support your product. There is that line where they say, I can't spend this much anymore. So where does that tip? It all will end up falling on the small business owner, correct? Because if I stop buying your product, there's nothing you could do about it. You can't lower the prices and go out of business that way. So you're in a no-win situation, right?
That's just it. I look at consumer spending. You know, if you look at, I think it was Q4 of last year, 50% of all consumer spending was spent by the top 10%. That's very, very troubling.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about it, folks that are doing well are going to keep on doing well. Folks that are struggling are struggling even further. So for me, if I'm looking at consumer spending, and if we get to a point where consumer spending remains 50, 60% by the top 10%, then we're in a really, really bad spot because folks just don't have disposable income. They're going to be focused on necessities rather than on discretionary items like those that we make.
Kyle, we have just about 30 seconds left. I know this isn't very much time, but for people listening today who are consumers, what's your, as somebody who's manufacturing these goods, what's your one piece of advice you could give them right now?
Speak up, call your politicians. Reach out to your federally elected officials, those in Congress and the House and the Senate. Tell them that, hey, this administration is out of control. We need to rein in everything that this Trump administration is doing and plans to do in the foreseeable future.
Wisconsin wakes up here. Back to Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
7:52 right now. Thank you so much for joining us. And hey, Brian, just a little reminder for our WMDX listeners. You at 8 o'clock are going to be going to Stephanie Miller to hear everything she has to say. But the rest of the Civic Media Talk Network is going to stay with us until 9 o'clock. And if you want to hear more of what we have to say, you can always check out that app. You can download it for free at your Apple or your Google Play Store. And, you know, check out all the stations and hear us and hear some great music all at the same time because there's plenty of options over there. So,
but mostly listen to us.
Yeah,
there's
we're
other
important
options.
and stuff.
Options. Too many options just confuse you. So if you're, just do that. We're glad you're here. And if you want to jump in now and get involved, always, you're welcome. 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. We have been following with great interest the Anthropic story. You know Anthropic. They do Claude, the big, very popular AI program that is, since this whole saga has started, has just exploded. Everybody's talking about Claude. Well, You also remember that Anthropic was put on the Defense Department's list as a supply chain risk because they refused to capitulate to some of the uses that the Pentagon wanted their program to be used for. They said, no, we haven't done enough research. It's not, we will not allow you to use it that way. So then Pete Hegseth decided that they were too woke for the military and put them on that risk, canceled their contracts, which cost millions. Well, now, as the saga continues, Anthropic is suing the Department of Defense and other federal agencies. They filed that suit Monday over the Trump administration's decision to label the AI company a supply chain risk, which is basically the scarlet letter. Once you're labeled a supply chain risk, you are in your trouble, not only with the government, but other people who would purchase your product too. The Pentagon issued the supply chain risk designation after negotiations to update its contract with Anthropic broke down over two red lines that Anthropic wants the Defense Department to agree to. One, that its AI tool won't be used for mass surveillance of U.S. citizens. I'm good with that. And that it won't be used for autonomous weapons. And those are the two sticking points that Anthropic will not budge on. And that made Pete Hegseth very mad. And so that's where we are now.
We had to get to a podium and do a lot of pointing like he was earlier this morning. But no, I all joking aside, what I think is interesting about this whole thing is that this administration always likes to draw a line in the sand with certain organizations, certain companies, certain people. Companies and people and organizations that you probably wouldn't have paid any attention to any other time in your life.
Exactly.
And then they amplify it to the point where Claude is now one of the hottest, most in-demand type of word systems, AI functions that anybody is even talking about. You could have just let it die down. Nobody would have even cared about Claude, and now everybody wants to be involved with Claude. And not to mention the fact that Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei is one of those guys who is actually taking on this administration and saying, I'm not going to bend the knee to you. I'm not going to do what you're asking. And they've now made Claude and Anthropic one of the hottest commodities on the market.
Because they've martyred them, basically.
Yes.
The administration, in its unthinking need to have people obey them, has now created a corporate martyr, and Anthropic looks like the good guy, like, yay, way to stand up for this. And they may well be, but boy, it has backfired once again, like so many things for this administration.
It has. And I think if you're somebody who's paying attention to what this administration does, you have to think about this as the fact that this is a private company, and this is a private American technology company that is pushed back on how its tools can be used by the government because they don't trust this company, and this CEO does not trust how this administration is going to use the tools that they have created. They don't know who's going to ultimately be in charge of those tools. They don't want them used for things like domestic surveillance or any sort of autonomous military systems. So if you think about that for a minute, and you're not just a little bit frustrated by this administration, if you're not a little weary of this situation, you should be, because this is a company saying, no, we've been in the meetings and we know exactly what you want these tools for, and we will not be a part of that. That should make all of us take a moment and go, whoa, what exactly are they trying to do with these AI tools at this point?
And then once again, this administration loves to be punitive. Instead of just canceling the contract or allowing the contract to expire, they need to go an extra step and try to make an example out of Anthropic. And it's again, it's not working. So they thrive on the misconception that the more cruel and punitive they are, the more people will bend to them. And up until this point, we've seen it with media companies and and some law firms. People do bend rather than have to fight it in court. Anthropic is saying, no, you've basically ruined our reputation. You have made it look like we are a risk to the security of this nation, and we are not going to have it. And you are going to have to answer for this in court. And I don't know who would want mass surveillance in this country that is not going to believe that Anthropic is doing the right thing. Autonomous weapons, I'm not a military expert. So I can't really speak clearly on that. I think it's good that we can't just have AI making the decisions. I think it's good to have human being when it comes to methods of war and tools of destruction. You need human minds and people there to run it.
I mean, artificial intelligence is going to shape a lot of things going forward. Everything from our national security to our policing, our healthcare, our economy, even elections. I'm not naive to any of that. But if companies can't trust the government with how that technology is going to be used, they're going to start pulling back, like we're seeing Anthropic do right now. And if the government starts labeling those companies as risks simply because they set ethical limits for themselves, that's going to discourage innovation. It's going to discourage cooperation. At the same time, technology is going to keep moving faster than ever. And this is definitely something you're going to have to pay attention to going forward.
Want to join in on the conversation? Call or text 855-75-CIVIC. Now back to Brian and Jamie.
I love that bumper music. It's a little bit of jazz, a little bit of rock, and a whole lot of blues. I love it. Yeah, some Grateful Dead in there. I love that. It's 8:06 right now. If you are joining us this morning, thank you so much for having us on. If you're in Richland Center, you are listening on WRCE, in Hayward on WBZH, and in La Crosse on WLCX. We welcome you all to the program this morning. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And I'm Brian Noonan. We're glad you're here. This, unfortunately, might not surprise you. It does not really surprise me.
No.
A classified U.S. intelligence assessment completed in February, shortly before the U.S. and Israel launched strikes against Iran, concluded that military action was unlikely to lead to regime change in the country. That report, which was prepared by the National Intelligence Council, determined that neither limited airstrikes nor a larger, prolonged military campaign would likely result in a new government taking power in Iran, even if key leaders were killed. That didn't matter to Benjamin Netanyahu, who then got it to not matter to Donald Trump, and we are in the position we are now. And we had heard that before this was released, we had heard that the intelligence community had said there was no credible threat to the United States, nothing. Our administration fell back on, well, Iran's been a pain for 47 years. Yes, true. The regime is brutal. Yes, true.
Mm-hmm.
Needs to be removed. True. But why now? That's none of your business. We have reasons. We have our reasons.
Well, I think, too, in this entire process, and let's remind everybody that watching this administration is like a slow-moving avalanche, right? It is the fastest and slowest-moving thing ever. This Iran conflict has been going on now for 10 days. We're 10 days in. We've been watching this war in the Middle East, but it's also like having whiplash all at the same time, right? Because it feels like an eternity ago we were talking about tariffs. We were talking about Greenland. We were talking about all of these different threats, the Supreme Court ruling. And yet here we are 10 days into a conflict with no end in sight. Now, I know the president wants to tell us that, we're close, it's short term, they've been obliterated. I don't actually feel like that's what's happening. And if you're watching what they're saying, the governments in the Middle East are saying, especially Iran, if you are listening to what the president is saying, if you're listening to Marco Rubio or Pete Hegseth, one of these things is not like the other. And I don't see these Middle Eastern countries giving up very easily, especially Iran now.
The troubling part of this is we had this information.
Yes.
The president chose to ignore it. Because we operate now as a country on what he believes. It doesn't, fact doesn't matter. Experts in the intelligence community writing up these assessments, giving them reports. I don't know if supposedly there's daily briefings with the president every day. We don't know if he listens to them. We don't know if he still gets them. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, the administration chose to ignore the people that we have tasked with protecting this country through the intelligence community. And we went ahead and did something that now is going to, he could say it's going to be over in a couple days as much as he wants. We know how things last over there. We reported at the beginning of the show. Tehran has said they are ready for a long, drawn-out conflict. So this is not going away, and it's infuriating to me that we knew this. We knew this was going to happen. It's exactly as the report said it would be.
Right.
And we did nothing.
There's also been reports that his inner circle, including J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, even Pete Hegseth, were skeptical about going into Iran because of what could be a long, drawn-out conflict. They were skeptical at the beginning and weren't sure that this was the right tactic for this particular government to take. Intelligence officials, though, found that there was really no strong or unified opposition movement inside Iran ready to step in and replace the current government if the leadership collapsed. That assessment predicted that Iran's political and religious establishment would likely move quickly to preserve the existing power structure rather than allow a political vacuum to develop. And what I find fascinating about that is we've had our own experts here on this program who have talked about the fact that they were, if any regime was ready for this type of conflict, it was Iran, who had people 5 and 6, maybe even 7 people deep. Right. So no matter what the president tells you, they've all been taken out. That's not true. It's not true. They have been prepared for this probably more than any regime we've had some experts say probably in the world, because they were always prepared for these types of tactics against them.
And Khamenei's son, yes, you can believe when the president says a lot of people haven't heard him speak. That's true, because he's been operating behind the scenes for decades. Right. He is well-versed with the Republican Guard over there. He is well-versed with the other clerics. He is ready, and he was ready. And everything that this report said was going to happen has happened. It also stated that there is tension between the administration and the intelligence community because the president dismisses their findings and says they're part of a deep state with a political bias. This is the kind of dangerous and careless behavior that led us to this point,
right,
and will continue to lead us down a road. I was going to say to destruction. That's a little hyperbolic, but it's going to lead us to a road with very questionable and I would predict not pleasant endings.
What I also find fascinating is that when you dig into some of these findings, it raises questions about claims that this conflict could even achieve the objectives, even if they're ever changing from this administration.
I was going to say, we don't know what the objectives are, though, right?
Particularly if the expectation was that military pressure might weaken or collapse Iran's leadership, because that's not happening. Now, the Trump administration has given several different explanations for these strikes, saying, obviously, as we know, we've listened to the back and forth, that they were meant to set back Iran's nuclear program or even prevent potential imminent Iranian missile strikes and attacks. And some administration officials have said that the goal is not regime change. We've heard that. It's come out of several different people. The president, though, has at times suggested that he would like to see different leadership in Iran, creating some confusion about the long-term objective. And what I also think is fascinating is last week sitting in his office with the German chancellor and asked, what happens if it's somebody worse than Khamenei who comes in? And they were specifically asked about his son. And the president's answer, and I'm paraphrasing here, was, that would be bad.
Yeah.
Well,
he said the worst thing would probably be if we did all this and then we got somebody worse. Well, congratulations. That was a little bit of foreshadowing, sir, because you did. By all accounts, the son is as hardline, if not more hardline than the father, and it's not going well. And then, my favorite quote was, he was surprised about Iran's reaction. Oh, did you see? He creates a world in his mind that doesn't really exist. He creates a world where everyone will bow to him. even when he says he wants to be involved in choosing the next leader of Iran, do you think anybody in Iran is going, oh, we wonder what Donald Trump thinks? No. They're thinking, these are the people that bombed us. These are the people that killed 160-some children at a girls' school. This is, why would you think anybody cares what you have to say in another country? They don't.
Because here's the weird thing, too, that we have to understand. The dynamics in the Middle East, especially Iran, are not the dynamics we're used to in this country. Because they didn't really like the Ayatollah, most civilians. Mm-hmm. Yet he was what they knew as far as leadership. They don't really know a world without the Ayatollah in charge. So there were some celebrations. Yes, I'm not going to deny that. I'm for sure not shedding tears over the Ayatollah not being in charge and leading a tyrannical government anymore. But at the same time, most of the in the streets that we saw on cameras from Iran after the Ayatollah was killed were not people celebrating Donald Trump and the victory of killing the Ayatollah. They were actually shouting, because it's been translated, death to Donald Trump.
Yes, but he doesn't want to hear that. He doesn't want to hear that. He has Israel telling him, great job, you're winning. You got Hegseth coming out saying, we're doing great. Nobody is giving us enough credit for the wonderful things we are doing. We're glossing over again this decision to ignore the intelligence reports. All he had to do, and all the administration had to do, was listen to the intelligence and go, okay, we've been hunting this guy for a while. Israel really wants him gone. Let Israel handle it. And if there's retaliation and we decide to help, that's fine. But this isn't our fight right now. It might become our fight later, but right now we're just going to keep an eye on Iran. We know the devil we know versus the devil we don't. And now we've got the devil we didn't. And it doesn't look like we know it's not going to change. Now we've stirred the hornet's nest where we have also now become a target, more so than we were before.
I think what troubles me most is, which is part of this ignoring the intelligence report conversation, but the fact that we lean on things like, well, Bibi told me, Bibi recommended we needed to do this. And the fact that this president, instead of listening to career officials who know a thing or two.
In your own country.
Right. He leans on this small inner circle of thinking. And these are people who critics say don't always have the experience or the qualifications when they're making big decisions, especially this big. And that is a danger to all of us, because career intelligence officials, diplomats, military experts, they exist in our government for a reason. Their job is to essentially analyze information. It's to challenge the assumptions. It's to warn the president or other leaders when something might not go according to plan, which is exactly what was done here. If those voices start getting shut out, like we know this president likes to do and has done in this particular case, if experienced professionals are ignored because these conclusions are just inconvenient to the president of the United States, then these decisions are made in an echo chamber, which is what this is beginning to look like when we're talking about Iran. And history shows us that when that starts to happen, wars become miscalculated, conflicts last multiple years, much longer than they need to, and the consequences are going to ripple across the world, not just in the United States, not just in the Middle East, but across the world. And that is essentially what we're already starting to see play out 10 days into this Middle Eastern conflict.
No end in sight, no matter what we tell. Still no hard and fast reason why we're there. It will continue to be this way, and you are just supposed to listen, believe, and go along with it. And if you're worried about prices, you're an idiot, and that's the way it goes in America today.
It always goes back to the believe what you see and hear, not what they're trying to tell you. That's what it always goes back to. You got to believe with your own ears and eyes.
Fairly solid and better than expected. It's Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
It's 8:22 right now. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us today on the Civic Media Network. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And I'm Brian Noonan. We're glad you're here. This could be good news for Wisconsin Democrats. An announcement came yesterday that State Supreme Court Justice Annette Ziegler will not seek a third term in 2027. She made that announcement yesterday. She said in a statement, quote, "After 3 decades on the bench, now is the right time for me to step away and spend more time with my husband, kids, and grandkids." That's everybody who retires. They all want, listen, you spend enough time with your family, you go, I wish I was still working. This is crazy. But she is one of the lone conservative, she's in the conservative minority on the court. So, Jamie, this has to be encouraging news for Democrats, perhaps.
I think so. And if you are a election junkie, probably means yet another election in 2027, maybe 2028. I guess it will depend on how this plays out. But again, she won't be seeking that third term next year. So we'll have to, that spot on the Wisconsin Supreme Court will have to be filled. Now, if you don't know much about her, she's got a bachelor's degree in psychology as well as business administration, actually earned a law degree from Marquette University in 1989. She was a private practice attorney as well as a prosecutor until 1997 when then Republican Governor Tommy Thompson appointed her to the Washington County Circuit Court. And then in 2007, she beat attorney Linda Clifford for her seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court in a race that cost about $6 million at the time, Brian. That was a record for a court race. So going all the way 20 years.
I was going to say 20 years. This state has been pumping money into these Supreme Court races forever, and it's just gotten more and more bizarre and more expensive. Just every year, it's like, good.
It's kind of insanity. And if you don't remember,
Yes.
it is political insanity. If you don't remember back in 2008, shortly after Ziegler joined the court, her colleagues actually reprimanded her for handling cases as a circuit court judge involving West Bend Savings Bank. She and her husband was a director there at the time, and she is the only justice in state history to be disciplined by her own peers.
Yeah.
Which I think is also fascinating little, would we say blemish? Maybe a blemish on the record, just a little bit.
It is. I think if you're the only one ever, yes, that counts as an interesting blemish.
But this is fascinating because we are currently sitting at another election. We already have a Supreme Court election coming up on April 7th between Democrat Judge Chris Taylor and Republican Judge Maria Lazar. By the way, early voting starts March 24th, so get ready for that. But at the same time, we are looking at a court that right now sits in a 4-3. Democrats have a 4-3 majority, getting ready for another election where it feels like maybe Wisconsin, if you look at the latest Marquette polling, is a little complacent this time around. The money pumping into this particular race between Taylor and Lazar is not quite what it was during Schimmel and Crawford way back when. Again, remember our
this
timeline,
race,
it moves fast.
but this race also wasn't getting the national attention that one did because of Elon Musk's involvement and
But why?
taking it to that big level.
I mean, that's my question. Why was he so focused on Crawford and Schimmel
Because
just 1 year ago?
that would have flipped the focus of the court. It would have been conservative. So that was the thing, because they were trying to, in the wake of the fake electors and the 2020, they wanted the Supreme Court stacked with Republicans so that when the next challenges came, or even if they relitigated like they've done in other states, that they were hoping that the Supreme Court would rule in their favor. So they were trying to buy more decisions by putting more like-minded people on the court, and it didn't work, and that was the big battle. And now we don't feel that pressure this time around. But complacency is a very dangerous thing, because the balance of the court can shift any election. It can shift. And if you go from 4-3 to 5-2, you're a little better off and you've got a little more breathing room. But complacency is not an option at this point.
No, absolutely. And I think that's what we're seeing in the recent polling from Marquette is not only are we seeing complacency for this Supreme Court race, we're also seeing it across the board with the gubernatorial race, especially on the Democratic side, where right now you have the seven Democrats all vying for the top spot to run against presumably what's going to be Tom Tiffany. He is obviously the Republican frontrunner. But, I guess I'm a political junkie. So if we're talking another major statewide election, I'm down. I'm ready for another one. I mean, this is what we breathe on, like cheese curds and elections in this state. I mean, what else do we have? This has literally become a state where we have elections almost every single year.
There's a lot of elections.
It's a lot of elections. I mean, let's be real. This year alone, we have 4. We're down to 3, but we still have 3. We have 3 to go. We've already had 1. So, I guess if we're talking the money in politics, because I'm going to assume that depending on how this race shakes out on April 7th, is probably going to dictate how big of a race this potentially is between Ziegler's Republican replacement and potentially a Democrat replacement. I don't actually mind the more low-key election this time around and the lack of, I don't want to say lack of money because there's plenty of money going into this Supreme Court race as well. But in comparison to last year, there's definitely a lack of money.
But do you... yes, a low-key election is nice. There's still a lot of money, but low-key election scares me because to me, if there's not a lot of hype and a lot of hoopla, it did lead to bigger numbers in turnout last time. So I fear that low-key will translate to low turnout, which is never a good thing in any election. So don't rest on your laurels, folks.
I guess we're about to find out who's got the better grassroots effort. Is it going to be the Democrats or the Republican? Because this one's going to be probably one in the grassroots. It's 8:29 right now. This is Daybreak. I'm Jamie Martinson.
And I'm Brian Noonan. Perhaps public buy-in to Badger Care. We'll talk about it after this. It's the Civic Media Network.
Local news, community stories, and the conversations that matter most. Now, more Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
It's 8:35 right now. Thank you so much for joining us on the Civic Media Network. And hey, by the way, good morning. I don't know if I've said that enough today. My name is Jamie Martinson.
I've said it enough. I'm Brian Noonan. No, we're glad you're here. As a result of rising costs for health insurance purchased through the Affordable Care Act, about 20,000 Wisconsin residents did not enroll in marketplace health insurance this last year. Democrats in the state legislature are proposing another solution to help more people afford health coverage. Representative Tara Johnson from Shelby, she's a Democrat, announced legislation Tuesday that would enable members of the public to buy into the state's Badger Care Plus health insurance plan. To tell us about this is Christy Tweed. She's with Healthcare Action. She's the Healthcare Action Coordinator, at Citizen Action Wisconsin. CitizenActionWI.org is the website. Christy, thanks for being here this morning. We appreciate it. So tell us what's in this proposed bill. How is this going to work? What does it entail?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Well, it's basically a 4-part plan. So one, it creates a state exchange, which many states have already done. So instead of going to the federal ACA, you would go to a state exchange. You would still have the options to buy into insurance covered plans, but there would also be a state plan, Medicaid or Badger Care plan. So it would expand coverage for those that are currently making, like right now, they qualify at $15,000 a single person. It would expand that, so almost double it. They would be able to make $30,000, and a family of 4 making $30,000 right now is covered. It would expand it up to a little over $60,000, which we know is still not very much. Right. So that would be the basic plan that would expand coverage, what we know as Badger Care expansion. And then it would also allow other people, entrepreneurs, business owners, people who don't have employee coverage to buy into the plan on a sliding scale, and also be able to use the existing ACA subsidies that are no longer that not the ones that got taken away, not the enhanced ones, but the original subsidies. And then lastly, it would open it up to small business owners to buy plans for their employees. So businesses with under 50 employees would now be able to go on the small business marketplace and buy coverage for their employees, which makes them more competitive. We know a lot of businesses are really wanting to be able to provide coverage for their employees.
So, Christy, let's take a quick step back for anybody who's listening today, who maybe has never used Badger Care, isn't really familiar with Badger Care. How does this current proposal from the Democrats differ from what is currently available to people?
Sure. Right now, you have to make under a certain amount to qualify for basically free health care under the Badger Care. Badger Care is Medicaid. But we know, like I said, a single person making $15,000 a year, that barely covers rent. A lot of people have, first of all, most people on Badger Care already work. The ones who don't are usually disabled or have issues that cause them to not be able to work. Family of four at $60,000 or at $30,000. Who can afford the premiums that are now being thrusted on us, especially after HR 1 and the sort of obliteration of the enhanced premium tax credits? And by the way, I prefer tax credits over subsidies because these are tax credits to help mid to low income folks get access to health care, no different than tax breaks that were given to the very wealthy.
Well, they're different. We know that. We don't equate the two. I mentioned at the beginning, 20,000 Wisconsin residents didn't enroll this year. Has there been any estimate of, if this bill were to become law, how many people? First of all, how many people are on use Badger Care now, and what the increase would be if this became a law?
First of all, it's really hard to tell how many people are dropping off or will continue to drop off the ACA because so many people were auto enrolled and just are now starting to get their bills and realize they can't afford it. So we know in the country over 1 million people have already dropped off. And we expect that to triple or quadruple. So people are going to get their bills and just not pay them. So they haven't really been registered on that scale yet. The other thing is many people have dropped to a lower plan. So if they were on the gold plan before, now they're on a silver or bronze plan, which unfortunately, those plans have very high deductibles and high copays. So even if people are covered, they're not getting the care they need. They're opting out. We know 52% of Wisconsin were avoiding or postponing care prior to HR 1, just because they're afraid of the costs. And we know that, it started a long time ago. The system has been rigged against us for a long time. Greedy insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, and hospital monopolies are putting profits over people. That's what's great about this plan is there's no profit involved. It's just at cost. So we know that people will have a lower cost option through this plan.
We're talking with Christy Tweed this morning. She is the healthcare action coordinator at Citizen Action Wisconsin, citizenactionwi.org. Christy, as we talk about these increase in prices and people losing coverage, how would a public option like what's being proposed potentially lower the cost or even give people more choices when they're looking for insurance? Is that possible with this proposal?
Sure. Well, like I said, insurance companies control the cost on the other plans. We're not taking away anyone's options. People can still go on the marketplace and buy from private insurance, but there's a lot of profit built into that. With Medicaid or Badger Care here in Wisconsin, that cost is already set by the government and there's no profit involved in it. Also, we get discounts by buying on a larger scale. So it's already established program. So we don't know exactly what people would pay if they're buying in, but we know definitely that the expansion is going to help the people that are making under the income level we're proposing. But we have to assume that the people buying in on a sliding scale would be much cheaper than the inflated insurance prices that are out there now.
Christy, how's this proposal being commented on by politicians, by the rest of the assembly? What's the vibe on this?
So we have record sort of, it's early yet. We just proposed it the other day, but we have record support in the assembly. I think all but 2 assembly people have signed on to it. And, we're still in talks with the rest. Several senators have signed on. But that's really the next phase of our campaign, is really just like getting in touch with them and explaining it a little better and trying to garner support. The other thing is we need to, as people, make our voices louder than, like, say, the hospital association, right? Like,
Yes.
So that's an important part of the work that I do, is going around the state, talking to our co-ops, doing town halls, making sure the public's aware, and sending their representatives letters and making phone calls and making sure that they know that the public wants this.
Are any of the gubernatorial candidates piggybacking on this now and using it as campaign fodder?
They are talking about a public option, which is exciting because, Governor Evers put it in the budget last time and it got struck out, and we feel like maybe could have fought a little harder for it. I know it's a complicated process, not dissing on Governor Evers, but we see a lot of the, at least Democrat candidates, talking about some form of a public option. And that's something that we will also be tracking and looking at and holding candidates accountable for too.
A lot of people say that these public programs are going to cost taxpayers more. So let's talk about that for a minute, because as obviously a proponent of this, and as this bill, we find out more about it, how do supporters of this proposal respond to the concern that a public program would cost the taxpayers more?
Sure. Well, first of all, we can't do a completely accurate fiscal analysis right now because the federal regulations haven't even been released on how the expansion and HR 1 is going to work. So it's kind of impossible to compare apples to apples. Also, I would say, so that there may be a little cost involved in this. We initially thought that it would pay for itself. We do know less people will be going to the emergency room, right? If they're uncovered, guess what? They go to the emergency room, and who pays for that? So there probably will be some cost, and we think it's well worth it. The tens of thousands of Wisconsinites that will gain coverage, this is just an urgent need for the Wisconsinites. And I say we could look into rolling back some of Scott Walker's tax cuts for the very wealthy to pay for this.
It's probably the same answer that you just gave without, with this being new and there's no fiscal reports yet. Was there any estimate on what the public buy-in would be premium-wise for an individual or a family? You used the individual and the family of 4 as examples before. Any range where this might fall?
I do not have those numbers. I think that's something that comes, like, this is the basic of the bill. If it gets to, committee and hearings and they start working on it, we'll have better estimates.
Okay.
Excuse me. But I mean, we believe because there's no profit center involved, that it'll be a lower cost option. And I think there's some estimation that where they've done this in other places, that the insurance companies in that area in the state tend to lower their prices a little bit as well to be competitive.
There you go. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Right.
with the current political climate, obviously we know that the legislature's already gavelled out for the year. The Senate's getting ready to gavel out for another year. So obviously a proposal for expanded health care is going to face some long odds because of the legislature and the fact that the Republicans have chose to take a little time off. Why introduce a bill right now if it won't pass? And what can people do who are listening with just a couple minutes left to make sure that their voices are heard if this is something they feel like needs to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it took a little longer than we planned getting it introduced, but we do feel like they could go back to work, but knowing that probably isn't going to happen. We just have to look forward to what we can do next cycle, right? So
Sure.
What can we do now to set us up for next cycle? And that is getting involved with organizations like Citizen Action of Wisconsin. We have a lot of partner orgs that we're reaching out to form a coalition behind this. We're doing town halls across the state, press events. We have co-ops throughout the state where you can join our healthcare team. And I actually hold a statewide healthcare team of leaders that work on.
Wisconsin wakes up here. Back to Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
It's 8:52 right now. We hope that you are having a great morning. I told Parker one day that I love that music coming back in because it makes me feel like I'm at the end of a 1980s show. You know, like one of those where it had the big end credits and
that's it.
It's a good feeling.
It's Born to Run. Our last segment, we get revved up to hit the door. Not that we don't love spending time with you, but
we love spending time here.
We do, but our workday's done. I need to go. First thing I go do is to take my mind off politics for 5 minutes. I let the dogs run crazy on me, and we just we do that. Jamie, when we complain about our job, it's mostly tongue in cheek because we got a pretty good gig. But a lot of people do not like their jobs. A lot of people complain. Parker's one of them. Oh, nonstop. Yep.
Yeah, can't stand it.
Somehow he's upset with his coworkers. I don't understand it. But anyway, Parker, as bad as you think your job is, imagine spending 11 days in the jungle collecting chimpanzee urine.
Not where I thought that sentence was going.
Of course not. That's why I'm here. That's what
Gotta
Oleski.
keep you on your toes, Parker.
That's right. There's a job that's probably not worse than the job or is worse than the job you had. This happened in 2025 in Uganda. Oleski Moro is a scientist, and he said the most consistent, predictable time to collect chimpanzee urine is in the morning. Just like people, they have to go when they wake up. He's a PhD student in integrative biology at the University of California, Berkeley. And you may be thinking, Brian, why would you talk about chimpanzee urine when we're on our way to work? Because, friends, it's science.
It is science.
And the reason they're doing this, Jamie, is to try to find out if chimpanzees' attraction to fermented fruits that they eat in the jungle ties into human beings' desire to drink alcohol. So it's monkey and man and booze, and it all comes together in one story where I get to say chimpanzee urine. And to me, those are the three keys in picking a good topic.
Well, I love this. I do love a good science, even if a good science story, even if we are talking about chimpanzee urine. But yes, chimpanzees appear to consume a fair amount of alcohol when they're eating ripe fermenting fruit, which would make total sense, right?
Yes.
And so Morrow says that this actually tells us a little bit about human evolution. He says in primates, it could be that when, you smell alcohol, that means that that's maybe where the sugars are. Mm-hmm. So in other words, the scent of fermentation might be a shortcut to a more calorie-dense food. And he was intent on figuring this out. Essentially, the evolutionary origins of human attraction to alcohol. This might say more about Alexi than anybody, but, hey, I'm always down for a good science story. So it turns out that monkeys and apes are not likely consuming enough alcohol to get drunk. Well, that's good, because a bunch of drunk apes running around the jungle would
drunk monkeys.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
That does sound
Would be
great. Just,
something.
I would love an observation deck to watch drunk gorillas go at it. And I'll tell you another thing, Kong. You shut up. I don't care if you're silverback. I'll whoop you down.
But they do have an ancient affinity, and their ancient affinity may actually explain why humans are drawn to this stuff to the point of intoxication. Because, as Morrow points out, this could represent a profound, quote, mismatch between the way we live today and the way we evolved.
That's what I tell Debbie every time. I'm drinking because I've evolved this way.
That's
this
right.
is not, I can't help my upbringing, my DNA, my entire evolutionary tract.
So a lot of the ripe fruits that, typically make up a chimp diet in Uganda contain a good amount of ethanol. So Morrow really wondered if the animals were actually consuming the alcohol. It turns out of 19 chimps in the study, urine samples of 17 tested positive for ethanol, and at least 10 of those contained a concentration equivalent to humans having at least 1 or 2 drinks.
Chimps know how to party. That's what we've learned from this study.
Small number to say that this is definitive, but Morrow says that it's tantalizing. That would totally be a word that a guy who does this would use.
Oh, yeah.
Tantalizing when
Tantalizing.
talking about chimp urine.
Listen, monkeys who get hammered, that is tantalizing. That's a story I need to figure it out.
I just love that in this day and age, we can still use science to prove that humans and monkeys and still have some sort of connective tissue running through them.
Yes.
And that even if monkeys are eating fermented fruit in the wild to get hammered, that means that, well, we're going to have an affinity for alcohol too.
I would take a chimp out for a mango margarita. That would be,
Sure.
we'd both get some fermented fruit. It is interesting, though. This sounds like a guy, and I love crazy scientific studies because you're like,
Sure.
where did this idea come from? He probably got yelled at for getting drunk one night by his partner, and he said, you know what? It's like I can't help it. I smell this alcohol, and I just want to. There has to be some ancient link. And
Right.
now he is out to prove it, and it seems promising. Yeah, well, it's tantalizing, Jamie.
What I love about this is he says the next step in his research will essentially be determining whether these chimps are actively seeking out the fruits that contain ethanol or just consuming it by mistake. Yep, that's what I say every time
Yeah.
too. I just consumed that one by mistake.
Where'd that
one just
bottle of
got in my
bourbon
hand.
go? I don't know. I was having some bananas, walking around the jungle, and it's gone by accident. I'm just a monkey.
I feel like these are plausible excuses to get us all through life from here on out. And again, we could blame it all on science. And I feel like that's a win-win for all of us. See, this is what science actually gets us, Brian.
So you're welcome, folks. If you were going out for a happy hour today and you're afraid you're going to get yelled at when you get home, you're welcome. It's a connection to our primal past.
That's right.
So there you go.
That's the excuse you're going to use.
I'm going to go have a mimosa right now.
Oh,
that's a
I
good
think that
breakfast
sounds
drink with
lovely.
fruit. So,
Put a banana in it, though. Get more fruit in there. More fermentation. It's 8:59 right now. You are listening to Daybreak. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Jamie Martinson.
And I'm Brian Noonan. Have a great day. We will talk to you again tomorrow right here on the Civic Media Network.